So we see the two of them making music together and having a secret relationship that bleeds all over their lives. When Wyclef decides to marry his longtime girlfriend, he doesn't have any money. Lauren does have money because she's been on a soap opera, As the World Turns. So Lauren pays for the ring that Wyclef gives to his girlfriend to get engaged with. Yet they keep on sleeping together. Yes, I know, it's fucking nuts. Oh, curl him in this man's bed. You said you were studying, so about that, please don't piss me off. I just saw a message come through on his phone. The contact name got a red heart in it. I think that's his girlfriend. Deja, please, what did it say? Be home in 5. Deja, help me. While this is going on, their debut album comes out, Blunted on Reality, and it does very little business. No one cares. They make some changes. There's a montage where they somehow become much better at music. Their second album, The Score, sells over 6 million copies. Suddenly, they're superstars. We see them go from small-time underground artists to big superstars, beloved by paparazzi, followed by fans, doing big TV shows, doing big concerts in other countries, all of that success stuff. But the success of The Score leads the world to say, Wyclef is a musical genius. Lauren wants the world to know that she too is a musical genius. She wants the world to know that she is a better musician than him. There was always an unstated competition between them, and The Score left him far ahead. So she begins working on her solo album and purposely leaves Clef out of the mix. She begins dating Rohan Marley, son of Bob, but she's still also seeing Wyclef. Lauren gets pregnant, and she isn't sure whose baby it is. I know. Throughout her pregnancy, the whole camp is wondering, is it Wyclef's or Rohan's? Wyclef goes to the hospital after Lauren goes into labor thinking he's about to go see his baby. It was not his baby. That whole moment put a huge wedge between Lauren and Wyclef. This is where the Fuji group era comes crashing to a halt. It's hard for Clef to move on from the baby not being his. It's hard for Lauren to work with Wyclef, given her resentment about music and how she was perceived when they were together.
All right, you're listening to the voice of Torre, just giving you little snippets of he think the Fugees story should be turned into a movie. So he giving you how it should be conducted, synopsis, if you will. But the star of this live is my son, David Lewis Chambliss, the fourth. It's 4 of us, and he's the only one that has a college degree, and I'm proud of that because I made that happen. You feel me? You know, but let's break it down. Let's go through it. David Chambliss Sr. was a World War II veteran. He come back from the war and he's disrespected, still called ninja. Y'all know what I'm saying. I don't want them to strike this live because this is an important live because it's setting up for what my grandfather wanted for my son down the line. And that milestone was achieved, and I'm very proud of that. But again, my grandfather, World War II veteran, come back home and didn't get the welcome, didn't get the job, didn't get the status that he was supposed to have gotten. But he pushed through, he stood 10 toes down. He still became a homeowner. He worked hard. My grandfather was a locksmith, and among other trades that he did. And I remember him being a landscaper. Um, he did construction. And this is my dad on my father's side. And my grandfather on my mother's side, he didn't go in the military. But uh, he was also he laid carpet, and he was a musician as well. So bottom line, we were tradesmen that my bloodline is conducting. Me myself, I became a brick mason. So construction was my claim to fame, and I was a builder by trade, which didn't last long because I was scared of heights. But I tried to follow in my father's footsteps, who was an electrician. You know what I'm saying? And so it's funny how, the way of the world, the government job is not king no more. And everybody is reverting back to the trade skills that really never left. But it was desirable to be able to go get a government job, or you know, um, a private job where you can wear your suit and tie and have an office, and that was a goal. That was the epitome of you made it. That you could dress up and go into a federal agency or office, and you could sit with your Starbucks and your suit and tie on, or your nice dress and heels with your pocketbook to match. This is what I see in the government. And and you are someone that has a college degree, and you talking your talk, you giving folks your opinion and your knowledge and your detailed, precise, analytical ideas to how to make the work that you do successful. That was the goal. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going somewhere with it. I can jump around, but I'm gonna tie it all together. Not only that, my father said he was an electrician, and my father didn't go into the military. I don't think he wanted to, because my grandfather discouraged it because of how he was treated. And my grandfather admitted to me, I only went because they drafted me. I wasn't trying to go in there, you know, and which they didn't really talk about. He didn't really talk about serving, and it wasn't glorified. It wasn't considered being a hero like it is now, because they wasn't treated like heroes. You know what I'm saying? When they came back, and my grandfather, I found out at his funeral, he was an airman and flew missions over France when they were fighting Germany. And I was just tripped out to really find out that information. He's buried in Arlington Cemetery. He got the 21 gun salute, as all servicemen gets that honor. But there's a few people that's buried over Arlington Cemetery. right across the bridge by the Pentagon and the White House and the Black History Museum and the Key Bridge. And, that's big in itself, whether you know it or not. So I'm proud of that and proud that he served and were honored. But the mystery was, where did he learn how to fly? Because there was no Air Force, and I don't think that he was part of the Tuskegee Airmen, or was he? But I later found out right here in Maryland, they had an aviation school that nobody talks about that was right here in Patuxent, Maryland in 1940 something, 1940 to 1960. There was a black aviation school where black airmen opened to teach black men how to fly planes. Y'all didn't know that, did you? Do your research. And so I'm wondering, did my grandfather attend that school, and then got drafted in the military or however it went down? But, this is what uh, I found out when he died in his late 70s. I don't know exactly how old he was, but I remember going to the hospital and he was basically on a respirator, so he was probably already gone, but the machines was breathing for him, and my mother basically raised me and my siblings because my father was doing his thing, and he a young man, 20 years old. I think they had me when they were 20 because I'm 56. They both will be 76 if they were still here. So we 20 years apart. So he a young man, handsome dude with the big afro, snazzy dresser, good job. The ladies was on him and around him and running around him and whatnot. And I just feel like, he fell into the temptation, and moms got fed up at some point, and it's more to it, but this ain't about him. This is about David Chambliss the fourth, who completed college. Out of four David Chamblisses, the last one completed something big, that is worth talking about, in my opinion. And so it went from my grandfather, World War II veteran, my father, the electrician, and he later on sold cars, and he was like one of the best car salesmen for, he worked on St. Barnaby Road, the Dodge cars, or which was Dodge cars back then. That's where his office was at. And he was the best car salesman in this area. He won that award for a couple of years straight. He was a real personal person, meaning he knew everybody. He was this popular in the corporate world, the streets where he was from, and he made friends with everybody. So his clientele was crazy. And he outsold people selling cars for 2 years straight. You know, um, I'm thinking this was like somewhere in the 90s or something. I gotta find them certificates that they gave him, and they gave him a gold watch, which I have. I should have it on, but I'm freestyling now. Nothing I do is scripted. I just come on here and come off the cuff, right? But it gets to me now. David Chambliss the third. That's why my logo is the third. You see that? Roman numeral 3. That's what that's about. I'm the third David Chambliss of my lineage. And I told you I was a builder. Um, you know, I'm following my father and my grandfather as tradesmen, and but I really wanted to, be an electrician. And the math, you got to be very good at math and skilled at math to be an electrician. You know what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with live wires and whatnot, and you'll kill yourself if you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't know equations. And you know, to me, being an electrician was damn near like being a doctor. You got to understand what you learning because your life depend on it. You know. Um, so anyway, my brick masonry, my bricklaying career was limited, and I had to bump around and find my niche. And you know, I did some law enforcement. I became a volunteer fireman. I worked as an EMT. I was getting ready to be a food service inspector. You know, whereas though I can go around and uh, inspect restaurants and hotels to make sure that they were up to par with uh, their their status of cleanliness, and making sure they were following the code of the city that will pass inspection to make sure that it was safe to eat there. You know what I'm saying? And then I found my way into uh, what I do now, and you know, uh, so now comes my son in 2003, and he's 22 now in 2026. And he went to Townsend on a scholarship to be a musician and to teach music. But all his friends started getting jobs that were in IT. So he said, Pop, I think I want to do IT because all my friends around me getting jobs. So I said, well, you got to come home and go to PG, community college, because they not going to give you a scholarship to study IT. You're there to do music, right? To study music. So he came home. His room became his dorm, and uh, my man sealed the deal as of Monday. He got the word that he was clear to graduate, and we just been ecstatic. We on a high, and it was a long journey. You know, uh, you know, I think he was a little bummed out for having to leave Townsend, his friends, but he did get the experience on living on the dorm life, and he met a young lady that was Nigerian from San Francisco, and so I know that was hard to leave that, but we're not rich. We gotta do what we gotta do. And he started off rocky, but he found his legs, and he stood on 10 toes and got the deal done. So now we're entering the next phase of life, and that's securing a job, and but I also want him to take it further. I want him to learn a trade, and with your job skill set that you went to college for, and a trade that you can utilize, you'll never be hungry. and you won't be homeless. I'm a trade. You know, I'm a person that got a trade. You know, and that's what I went to school for. And I'm vocational. That's the correct wording of that. I'm vocational. You know what I'm saying? You know, because that was the options when I was coming out of school. It was either you gonna go to college, go in the military, or you gonna learn your trade. So that means you was gonna go to vocational school, and that's what I opted to do. Even though uh, I was almost enlisted in the Marines, and you know my pops was trying to press me to go in the army to carry on the lineage of my uncles and my grandfather and even my aunt. But I was kind of reluctant to do it because I'm like, well, you didn't go in the military, and it's a reason why. But he admitted to me that he never desired to go in the service. And I was like, well, why are you trying to press me out? But I get it. He wanted me to not be a victim or a statistic in these streets. Because in the 80s, DC was very dangerous, like other places, and he didn't want me to get caught up, and I understood that. And you know, so he would really put his foot on my neck about doing the right thing. You know, my grandmother was influential with religion. My mother uh, gave endless love and a roof, clothes, and fed us, and just always rooted and rallied about doing the right things. And then they put a structure of discipline into my mindset. Like, for instance, my grandmother used to say to me, I see what your friends doing. And I done talked about this a lot of times if you follow me. Um, my grandmother used to get into my psyche. She was like, you know, we used to have conversations, you know, and she say, and my grandmother used to make me rub her feet too. She was like, come on over here, rub my feet, you know, and, you know, and when I was a kid, that was a big deal because she'd give me $5 or something. And then I became a teenager. It just wasn't cool. Maybe if she had gave me 100 or 50, I would have been good, but that $5 wasn't cutting it. So I was like, you gonna give me more than $5 rubbing your feet. But anyway, that's a jokey joke. But my grandmother was the world to me. And she said to me, I know what your friends doing out there. And I say, what you mean? She said, oh, I see the cars and the money they flashing around, the nice clothes, you know. You gotta go? Okay, I'll be right up. I'm coming. And I gotta go get my grandbaby, but let me end it with this and I'll be back. She said, you know, can you read? Can you write? Can you comprehend? I say, yeah. You know, yeah, I could do all them things. She said, well, I want you to figure out how to exist in this world without hurting your people, selling them the drugs, you know, and getting yourself killed or locked away. You know, I want you to set goals on what you're going to do after high school. You know, you're going to go in the military or you're going to go in the, go to college or you're going to get you a trade. And I want that to be your destination, your goal. So I say that to say, when I went outside with structure and discipline, and nobody could curve me from what I had planned to do. which was one of them three things. I didn't know which one I was going to do at the time, but I knew I had to do something. And it wasn't going to be standing on the corners because I really couldn't, because my father was heavy in the streets and he knew everybody, and anything that I attempted to do, he was going to know about it. And I was scared and I feared my father because he wasn't nobody to play with. Then my grandmother putting that discipline and that challenge in my mind. And I'm gonna close it with this. My mother looked me in my eyes when a couple of my friends was getting locked up and killed. She say, "Look, we ain't rich, but we ain't really hurting for nothing. There's nothing that we need that's worth you going to jail or dying for. You understand me? So whatever you want out of life, you'll get it. You just gotta do what you need to do the right way and obtain them things. Therefore, you'll have it forever. Cause what your friends doing is gonna come quick and it's gonna go quick at a price. Okay, I gotta go get my grandbaby. I'll be right back. I just gave y'all 26 minutes and we're gonna do another 35 when I get back. Part two. We celebrating my son. He just finished college. He's a college graduate, and you looking at a proud dad. So when we come back, we're gonna talk about him and his journey. All right, peace. Streets Finders, Big Dave. Be right back at you.